Hello everyone, welcome to Dice T. My name is T. Instead of going through the posting up the entire Twitch stream of the session 0 that we did for Ironsworn Behind the Mask, what we're going to do is just give you a synopsis of everything that went on and a summary. If you feel like you want to go watch it, it was about 3-4 hour stream, and we got sidetracked a lot of it because it's streaming and you can get detracted from it. So what we're going to do is go through and give you everything that kind of went on and where this game world and campaign is coming from. To start off with, we will take a look at the game world itself. This originally started out as a 5th edition world building campaign exercise. So, and originally I wanted to blend the Frontier America circa 1650s with D&D. The idea was this was a time period that really the atmosphere and the culture lends itself to a really gritty, cool D&D environment that doesn't get explored maybe as much as it could. So we started generating this game world, and the native the indigenous people of this new world that the humans came to are predominantly wood elves. There's a lot of orcs and goblins and kobolds and other races. There'll be some, there's giants and the like. But it's predominantly a heavily forested area, very cold area. Wood elves are the predominant cultural influence in the area. As such, they tend to live in tribes. Some tribes have formed small villages. Usually it's anywhere from 2 or 3, 4 families up to maybe 100, 200 people. Nothing that we have uncovered so far has revealed anything larger in the area. The game world is a post-cataclysmic world where this cataclysmic event called the Arcanaclysm took place roughly 10 to 12 centuries ago. I'm sorry, 10 to 12 millennia ago, about 10 to 12,000 years ago. The nature of it was arcane magic corrupted humanity, and in a event to try to curtail the evil that the magic was causing, a rift was formed when the magic was effectively, for lack of a better term, extracted, and the void had to be filled, and it was filled with almost like a cataclysmic event. Think of like an atomic bomb where the air is evaporated, the air is eliminated, and what occurs, the explosion and the nuclear explosion is everything rushing in to fill the space that was previously occupied by the air. There was a similar event with regards to magic. It does not mean magic does not exist any longer. It is predominantly rare. Wizards it's typically against the law in most cultures to study magic. Sorcerers are considered, if they don't shun their nature, they're typically outcasts. So that's the underlying theme of everything. At one point during this, we were creating NPCs, and at one point I was exploring also some solo RPGs because I want to do some playing as well as the world building. And I was looking at things like D100 Dungeon and Four Against Darkness. And I had purchased Ironsworn. Well, the core game is free, but I also purchased some additional products along with it. And I never really read it. But after I was pursuing these solo games, I decided to give Ironsworn a look, and I watched some videos of people playing it, and I found out that there's a lot of similarities in the lore of Ironsworn than with the campaign world I was creating. So at that point, it became apparent I wanted to delve into that a little bit more. And as it turns out, I wanted a new way to explore world creation. So what I decided to do was to explore the world and create the world while playing the game, while playing Ironsworn. I wanted to investigate the big bad evil guy that we had created, or he's got also an NPC that we randomly generated, turned out to be an incredible story that was attached to the big bad evil guy. So I wanted to explore their characters while they explored the world. However, this is a new game to me, and the mechanics are new, and it's a gritty game. So rather than risking killing off those characters before they could impact other players, I decided to take a venture down another NPC's path before the humans arrive to the mainland, to the new land. So this is where we are with this. Today with Session 0, we ran through Your Truths, which is a way to customize the Ironsworn world. And what we're going to do is go through a synopsis of everything that we came up with. And then I'll discuss the parallels a little bit with the campaign and why I chose this route, because we've changed some things. Some things are the same, and some things are different. And then we'll go over the character a little bit and what his motivations are. And from there, we will call it a wrap and go from there. The campaign starts live. We're going to be running sessions Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 8:30 in the morning. Run about 3 hours for each, and then we will break them up into smaller bite-sized chunks and post them to YouTube as well. But if you can join in the Twitch stream, that'd be fantastic. We're going to try to figure out ways to incorporate chat. It's a new venture for me, so I'm trying to... I'm watched a lot of video. I'm pretty familiar with the rules, but never played it. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. So keep that in mind at first when you join. We're looking to explore this new world and figure out a lot of its differences. A lot of what it brings to a campaign world together. So we'll be looking for input as much as I can. Try to like I said, I'll try to integrate talking to chat as much as I can. But without further ado, let's get into Your Truths. We have one of the underlying premises is the elves, the wood elves, and what came to me is we are the firstborn, we claim the vows. And we'll get into this a little bit more in a moment once we get to this. I added a vows section, and it's after the old world, so we'll get into it shortly. The old world Humankind's marriage to magic 10 decades prior led to their corruption in a cataclysmic event. Most of the world's civilization approached extinction and were forced to rebuild and repopulate the planet. The Sundered Lands have been home to the Wood Elves most of this time. They tend to live in tribes, with some cultures and tribes forming slightly larger communities to the point of being small villages. Humans have not arrived to the Sundered Lands yet. Excuse me. Wow, that was sudden. I'm going to change. This was rolled. I didn't want to use Ironlands. Excuse me. And I didn't. So I rolled. And I rolled the word Sunder. So I called it the Sundered Lands. It has come to my attention that there is a campaign by an official Ironsworn campaign coming that's called the Sundered Isles. Therefore, I'm going to rename this. I don't know what the name is yet. But the irony of this is that about, I'd say 12, 15 years ago, I ran a campaign called the Sundered Lands. And one of the reasons I called it the Sundered Lands was I grew up, the street I grew up on was called Sunderland. So the fact that I rolled that was quite telling in the oracle. It was foretold. Anyhow, I am going to rename the Sundered Lands. So that's yet to be done. Probably do that first thing on Twitch stream Tuesday. Onto the vows. The vow of revelation replaces the iron vow. Wood elves always wear wooden masks, ornately carved wooden masks, with only 2 exceptions: during private family matters and during a vow of revelation, in which, when committing to a vow, the elf removes his mask to reveal his face, thus solidifying the determination of that promise. It is a great reveal for them, and it's a very personal thing. Much like the vow of iron, maybe a little bit more personal. Elves typically do not reveal themselves, and when they do, it has purpose. So the vow of iron has been replaced with the vow of revelation. Whether humans have an iron vow remains to be seen, and we will get to that at some point during the campaign. And if they do, it can be probably traced back to a common thread before the cataclysm, before the cultures were forcibly separated, effectively. Iron. The Arcanaclysm was unknowingly brought about by the gnomes, who created iron automatons that were fueled by arcane magic. These iron forged were so efficient at their purpose in consuming magic that the void they created was filled by something, causing the Arcanaclysm. These iron forged now exist as empty husks that can be occasionally found throughout the world, but no one knows their origin except the gnomes, who keep their dark secret closely guarded for obvious reasons. They brought about the destruction of the world. They're trying to do good, but that's not what happened. Their machines were too good at their job. The gnomes now view themselves as the custodians of the world, much in part to alleviate that guilt. Gnomes are pretty rare to encounter. They're more common to be discovered in humanoid societies that are a little more culturally diverse, whereas the wood elves, there's not a lot of variety on the new continent, but we'll get into that a little bit more. Myths, legends, and fairy tales all surround the existence of the Iron Forge. Some cultures have formed religions around them. Some cultures build communities around them. The Ironforged used to exist in a campaign of mine, and they used to be called the Soulforged. They're basically Warforged from Eberron, except I never really was a big fan of Warforged, so they became antagonists in my game worlds. And they used to be crafted of stone, and they existed in that aspect. Now they're with Ironsworn. It's a good fit that these are iron, quote unquote, statues dotting the world. Legacies. There are savage, feral humans in the Sundered Lands called the Broken. So there are humans that are encountered in the new land currently. They're a rarity. Before the Firstborn, civilizations were plentiful around the world, and their ancient ruins are found throughout the land. I almost look at them as like seeing a Sasquatch, right? Except they know that they exist. It's a fantasy world, right? So maybe a little bit more common than that, but humans are encountered. Communities. We live in communities called circles. These are settlements ranging in size from a steading with a few families to a village of several hundred. Some circles belong to nomadic folk. Some powerful circles might include a cluster of settlements. We trade and sometimes feud with other circles. So this is taken right from the Ironsworn rulebook. Leaders. Leadership is as varied as the people. Some communities are governed by the head of a powerful family, or they have a council of elders who make decisions, settle disputes. In others, the priests hold sway for some of his duels in the circle that decide. Again, this is something that was taken right from Ironsworn. Defense. In the Sundered Lands, supplies are too precious, and the lands are too sparsely populated to support organized fighting forces. When a community is threatened, the people stand together to protect their own. I have blended to the game world things, the concepts. There are those among us that see the Wood Elves as an encompassing community and see the tribes as contributing something bigger. Some of these become free wardens who work to serve and protect Wood Elf society as a whole. So some Wood Elves look as their culture as there's a bigger picture. They look for existence beyond the tribes and the communities that are formed. And some of these people, these free thinkers, become free wardens. As a matter of fact, we'll get into this later, but the background vow, it is this character's purpose in life to become a free warden. Mysticism, we've covered a lot of this. It's rare and dangerous. Sorcerers are often considered outcasts if they are unable to hide their nature. The study of magic is largely outlawed. Does not mean it does not exist. It's just it's a taboo. Religion. The religion is interesting on Ark Terra, which is the name of the game world. There are no gods. Divine magic exists in the form of the domains of worship. Divine magic is manifested in one's devotion to the domain or domains they have devoted their lives to. Religions have formed around this, and when a religion is powerful enough, it can manifest miracles, including the conjuration of godlike avatars for a short period of time. Whereas the typical trope is God created the world and mankind, humankind, this is the opposite. The people hold sway and can manifest power. The nature of that power is unknown to some extent at this point. However, they can tap into something, and the more powerful a religion becomes, the more powerful the miracles can be. Firstborn. The Firstborn are the predominant cultures in the Sundered Lands. Elves, giants, and the like. Beasts of all sorts roam the Iron Lands. They dwell primarily in the reaches, but range into the settled lands to hunt. There, they often prey on cattle, but attacks on travelers, caravans, or even settlements are not uncommon. I'd say like the typical tribe or established community may encounter a beast once every couple months. They're out there. This is a fantasy world. So some might have more troubles than others, and some might be more peaceful than others. Horrors. We are wary of dark forests and deep waterways, for monsters lurk in those places. In the depths of the long night, when all is wreathed in darkness, only fools venture beyond their homes. So there are undead that go hand in hand with beasts, so these things are a thing. That covers your truths. I will close this out. We can look at the game world here. This is the map that was generated for, the new land. The Sundered Lands, which is going to get a new name. Currently, our main character is going to live near the Frost Fields. We'll get into his character, but this is the area. Anytime we need to roll a destination or a location, random location, I have numbered these 1 through 10. So that random location can be figured out based on that. I haven't decided to weight the tables yet. I think everything's just an equal thing right now. I didn't do a 1 to 100 thing, but I could have. But it's just not necessary now. If we need to weight the tables more, then yes, I will. Character sheets. Character's name is Ark Cedendar. We derive these names from from Fantasy Generator. I think it's fantasygenerator.com, I believe it is. The first names of the elves I've generated so far from the Norse Raven names, and the last name from the Ent names. So the Ent names can generate things like White Oak or something like that. It could be 2 names given a wooden thing, or it could have another derived name. There's a half and half thing. In this case, I haven't decided whether it's going to be Rake or Rike. Probably Rake. And Cedendar is his last name. I've given him Edge 2, Heart 3, Iron 1, Shadow 1, and Wits 2. He is a hunter by trade, but his balance is between his abilities, his intelligence and his dexterity. He's more of a heart character, though. His willpower is strong. Vows. The current vow we have is a vow to become a free warden of the Sundered Lands. He does believe there is a bigger destiny for the Wood Elves. So he looks to try to maintain a semblance of peace between the tribes, even though there's disputes and occasionally outbursts that has not dissuaded him in any way. He looks to be a free warden at some point. So that is his main vow. I've given it the extreme difficulty rating right now. I did not think a threat was appropriate at this time. That could change. I chose extreme because it gives room if he has to renew the vow for some reason and it fails and he has to renew it, then it becomes epic. So it gives room for some potential problems. Assets. He is a hunter by trade. So he does supply. He's got 3 towns in his general area. One is the Frost Fields, which is the town he hails from. It's actually, it's about village size, probably about 150, 200 people. And there's a couple other tribes that are close to it, all within a day of each other. And the reason I did that is I wanted to be able to have some variety of villages to go to that didn't require a journey. Now, a lot of stuff is going to require a journey, but the other 3 towns are going to be around there. And he hunts, and he supplies the villages with furs, with hides, with meat. Once he's fulfilled his quota, his needs. So I've taken the combat talent of Archer. So when he secures an advantage by taking a moment to aim, he chooses his approach and adds +1. He trusts his instincts. He can do it with wits, or he can do it with edge. Considering they're both rated 2 on his summary, there's a possibility I could change that to give one of these, maybe he relies on his ability more than his smarts, a little bit more. I'll decide by Tuesday if that's the case. We chose the wild blood path. He does live on his own out in the wild. He's got a small cabin with some accoutrements. When he faces danger, secure an advantage or gather information using his knowledge or tracking woodcraft or woodland creatures, and you add +1 to that. And then I have chosen also Wayfinder. When you undertake a journey, take +1 momentum on a strong hit. If you burn momentum to improve your result, also take +1 momentum after you reset. So he's kind of a wilderness, true wilderness elf. One thing that we're going to eventually take is it's another path. One of the ones that's on the list to observe is Slayer, and a lot of this is going to depend on how the campaign unfolds, but the plan is when he starts, if he encounters beasts or horrors, he's going to start to be more inclined to want to deal with them. Another one I'm looking at, and I might replace one of these up front, is possibly, and if we do this, it's not going to be a horse. This is a very, very savage land, and the terrain doesn't necessarily isn't necessarily as conducive to a horse. What I might replace this with, and this was what I was doing in my other campaign, is using an iguanodon as the main mount. Iguanodons are a little bit more versatile. They're a little bit bigger than horses, but they can walk and run on 2 legs as well as 4. They're a little bit faster on 4, but they can typically on 2 legs they do have thumbs, so they can manipulate the environment around them. So the iguanodon might be something I start with. I have not decided yet. I might switch it with wild blood if I do, or Wayfinder. Probably Wayfinder, because since Wayfinder, traveling is related. So we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Bonds. He does live with his daughter, Degen Cedendar. She lives in the Heartland, which you can see I've got 2 of the regions named right now. The Heartland with no E, so it's definitely based on the heart, the stag. And then the Grimrocks is this area here, and I had to roll that, and you'll see why in a moment. So Tiva is Rake's daughter. She's very focused. She takes everything at face value. She loves to swim. It was a random thing I rolled. She's set in her traditions and her rituals, and she needs that routine in her life. She's lived in the region most of her life, obviously, and is very familiar with the heavily forested landscape. She's become a very proficient hunter and can act as a guide if necessary. She's under the tutelage. In this camp, That background is a little bit further along the timeline. Tiva is an NPC that was generated. I decided to play her father for this. There's potential storyline reasons for that. But we're going to let that uncover itself as the campaign progresses. I don't have anything that I want to do isn't necessarily going to happen. And I don't want to get into that because there could be some spoilers with that. But I'm letting the campaign take its direction, and if those things happen, if the opportunity presents themselves for those things to happen, then I hope they will. She's muscular, average height, dark blue eyes, long, medium brown hair, kept in a bun. He has a bond with the Frostfields, which is the village he is from, tribe village. It's typically a farming community, but the land gets very brutal in the winter, and there's a very short season of the ability to grow crops. So when it's growing season, and everybody contributes to it. So especially at those times, his business tends to be a little bit busier because they need a little bit more. They have less time to focus on the hunt and other things, and him and people like him that are true dedicated hunters tend to rake in a little more business. Not that they trade in monetary or currency. I'm sure there's a currency that we can determine later, but not necessary. Finally, we have Degen Cedendar. He's Rake's brother. We rolled to see if he had a sibling, and he had a sibling, and it turned out to be a brother. He lives now in the Grim Rocks, which is why we needed to roll that name. He carries emotional scars that have left him apathetic towards the world. He chose to leave his homeland to live beyond the Grim Rocks in solitude. So you can count the mountain region as the Grim Rocks. He lives in this region. And he has for some time. We rolled sick. I didn't know if that was related to the scars, to the emotional scars. I didn't see it as a physical sickness. And even if it was a physical sickness, at this point in time, there's no way that Rake would know about that. So he may be sick, and we can determine this if and when Degen is encountered. That's about the summary for this character. I don't think there's anything else on here that requires anything. So that is the nutshell. Again, we're going to be running this campaign. I'm starting session 1 Tuesday, 8:30 Eastern Time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. My schedule permits me to run. I stream Twitch weekday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's what my schedule permits, and I usually do 3 or 4 hour streams. I want to leave myself a little bit of opportunity for this, so I've only scheduled it 2 days a week because I don't want to get burned out on it. It's a new game system for me, and I want to leave a little room for creativity, suspense, and the like. So we're probably going to be running 3-hour sessions, which means there should be approximately 6 hours of new story each week. How long we take Rake on his journey depends on what happens in the game. There are other characters that, like I mentioned, I want to explore. Exploring other characters will allow us to explore more of this game world that's being created as we do this. So we'll get to it, those at that time. So if ever we get to a point where Rake needs to retire or we need to move on from him, then we have other paths to go down. And those other paths are going to be present different challenges. Because Imogen is one of the characters that we rolled. That she's a shadow elf that lives in the wood elf community. I'm not going to get into the details right now on how that happened, but she is. If you go back and look at streams, you would realize that she is a completely random character that was generated through random tables that really presented itself in a really cool way, and that fit perfectly to the point where I don't know if I could have generated a character of this depth, the way that she's evolved. We'll get into all that down the road. Another character, the big bad evil guy, is Kark-Da. He is a human. It's possible he's a broken, but it's possible he came over via the human ships. Have not decided yet. The fact is, he's a broken, frail individual. I look at him as a blend between Mr. Glass and Mr. Glass from Unbreakable, and what was the other one? Raceland from Dragonlance. He is very embittered towards the world because of the state his body has always been in. He's frail, he's sickly, he's and just enraged at the world, and wants revenge for it. And if he can't reach immortality, he will make the world suffer. So he's a very dark character, but we'll explore that more later. There's a huge summary on him so far. Other than that, those are two characters that, like I said, I'd like to explore, which I think would bring this game system into interesting places. Following Dark Vows is a very interesting thing because this game system was kind of made to be the hero to some extent. Dark gritty hero in a dark gritty world. You make vows to fulfill promises. People that typically fulfill promises are typically good people. Trustworthy people. So what happens when Imogen, who's an assassin, decides to make that first contract to take someone's life and fulfills that vow? That's a different path of the vow. And I think that deserves some exploration, and that's why I'm really intrigued by marrying the Ironsworn world with my world. And we'll see how it goes. So, until then, thank you very much. We will see you hopefully Tuesday. If not, keep an eye on this channel and you'll start seeing the videos posted. I'm going to try to start, this is a new channel. I'm going to start trying to get more feelers out there, more name, the Dice T name out there. So people are aware of what's going on here. I'm looking to reinvent myself as a DM, as a GM, and as a player. This is part of that journey. So we'll see how it goes. Until then, I thank you very much and enjoy. Peace.